There is a place in the heart of Africa where the trees grow so thick, sunlight rarely touches the earth, where mist clings to ancient vines and the sound of footsteps vanishes into the hush of green. This place is the Ituri forest, a realm of towering canopies, sacred rivers, and time untouched. And in this forest, for thousands of years, lives a people as rooted in its soil as the oldest fig tree, the Bambuti, sometimes called the Bambuti. These are not merely forest dwellers, they are the forest's voice. The Bambuti are among the shortest people in the world, with an average height under 4 feet 6 inches, but that measure, often emphasized by outsiders, says nothing of who they truly are. Their stature reflects adaptation, not limitation, a perfect harmony with the thick, humid undergrowth of their home. They are not small people. They are people of immense legacy. Their origins stretch back further than memory. Genetic and archaeological evidence suggests their ancestors may have lived in the Congo Basin for over 20,000 years, long before maps, nations, or written histories. They did not come to the forest, they emerged with it to them. The forest is not wilderness. It is home, guardian, spirit, and sustainer. Its silence is sacred, its rhythm their own. This video does not seek to define them, but to listen. It does not romanticize their survival, nor overlook their struggle. It moves with the pace of their footsteps, patient, aware, in tune. And as we walk beside them into the depths of the trees and the marrow of memory, we do so with humility, because in the story of the Bambuti, there is something overwhelming, a reminder of what it once meant and what it might still mean to be human. The Ituri forest is ancient, its roots sunk deep into the heart of Africa, where the Congo River stretches its mighty arms across the continent. Here, the air is thick with humidity, and the trees rise like colossal pillars, their canopies creating a sky of green. Sunlight filters through in streaks, casting beams onto a ground rich with the scent of wet earth, moss, and decay. In this vast expanse of wildness, where the rhythm of life plays quietly beneath the rustle of leaves, the Bambuti have lived for thousands of years. The story of the Bambuti is not written in books or carved into stone, but rather carried in their footsteps, woven into the fabric of the forest itself. The earliest evidence of human life in the Ituri suggests that the Bambuti's ancestors have dwelled here for over 20,000 years, and possibly much longer. Genetic and archaeological research reveals that these forest dwellers were among the first humans to live in the Congo Basin, predating the rise of agriculture and complex civilizations by millennia. Their relationship with the forest was not one of conquest, but of deep, intuitive understanding, a relationship built on reciprocity, respect, and balance. Long before the arrival of outside influences, the Bambuti thrived in a world untouched by the linear march of history. The arrival of Bantu-speaking agriculturalists, who began to migrate into the Congo region around 3,000 years ago, introduced new ways of living, farming, iron tools, and the concept of territorial ownership. But the Bambuti did not adapt by abandoning the forest. Instead, they remained steadfast in their intimate connection with it, learning to navigate the ever-changing world outside their borders while maintaining the ancient rhythms of the forest that sustained them. The Bambuti are not one single group, but rather a collection of smaller related groups that share similar languages, customs, and ways of life. Among them are the Ife, Aswa, and Susa, each with distinct dialects and social structures, yet all connected by their shared history and the sacredness of the Ituri forest. The forest does not separate them, it unites them. It is both home and heritage, shelter and teacher. This forest is their time, not in the sense of hours and minutes, but in the deeper pulse of life, of existence. It has never been wilderness to them. It is where they began, where they are, and where they will continue, ever connected, ever present. The Bambuti, with their small but strong frames, move through the Ituri forest with an ease and grace that has been honed over thousands of years. Their height, often remarked upon by outsiders, is not a measure of limitation, but a reflection of the forest itself, a place where speed, agility, and the ability to navigate the dense undergrowth are far more important than the strength of towering figures. The Bambuti, with their average height of under 4 feet 6 inches, blend seamlessly into the forest, their footsteps barely a whisper on the leaf-littered ground. This physical adaptation is not merely biological, but symbolic of a life in tune with the land. The forest, dense and vibrant, requires a certain type of being, one that is quick, quiet and perceptive. The Bambuti's small stature allows them to move with unparalleled speed and stealth, a skill essential for survival in the thick of the Ituri. In a world where most would struggle to pass through the underbrush, the Bambuti glide, their bodies molded to the land they call home. This connection to their environment extends far beyond physical traits. The Bambuti's culture, too, reflects their deep understanding of the forest's language. Their social structure is not based on hierarchy or material wealth, but on cooperation, shared experience, and mutual respect. There is no chief or ruler in the Bambuti world. Leadership is earned through respect, wisdom, and experience. Decisions are made collectively, with everyone's voice holding weight in the community. The Bambuti live in bands, with each family contributing to the survival of the whole, their lives intertwined like the vines that crisscross the forest floor. The Bambuti's culture is woven into their daily routines that are guided by the changing seasons, the migration of animals, and the pulse of the earth beneath their feet. Their language, a rich collection of dialects spoken across the various groups, mirrors their connection to the land. Words fluidly as the rivers that carve through the Ituri, each syllable carrying with it the knowledge of generations. They do not speak of ownership or division. Instead, they speak in terms of shared life, mutual respect, and the seamless connection between the human, animal, and natural worlds. In the Bambuti world, the forest is not a resource to be exploited, but a partner to be revered. Their relationship with it is one of constant exchange. They give their respect, their knowledge, and their labor to the forest. And in return, the forest provides them with everything they need: food, shelter, medicine, and even spiritual guidance. This is a partnership that does not demand ownership, only harmony. It is a system that has sustained the Bambuti for thousands of years and continues to shape their world today. As night falls in the Ituri forest, the world of the Bambuti shifts into its most sacred rhythm. The air grows cooler, the sounds of the forest deepen, and the sky above is filled with the blanket of stars that has watched over them for millennia. The Bambuti are not merely participants in this world. They are conduits for its deeper meanings, its spiritual currents, and its unseen forces. One of the most powerful expressions of this deep spiritual connection is the Molimo ceremony. For the Bambuti, the forest is not a neutral backdrop. It is alive, a living, breathing entity that must be kept in balance. The Molimo is performed to communicate with the forest spirit, to honor its power, and to ensure that the balance of life is maintained. It is a ritual of profound importance, a cry to the forest to awaken, to respond, to bless the people. It is performed during times of crisis, such as after death or during periods of drought, when the connection to the forest feels fragile or threatened. The ritual begins with the sound of a molimo, a long wooden trumpet carved from the heart of the forest. Its low, resonating tone carries through the trees like a call to the spirits. The men of the band gather, their voices rising in harmonic chants, weaving together in polyphonic patterns that echo through the forest. It is not music in the way most of the world understands it. This is a prayer, a request, a plea for the forest's guidance, protection, and strength. The women, children, and elders remain silent, their voices held in reverence, as the sound of the molimo fills the space between the physical and spiritual worlds. The Molimo ceremony is not just a ritual, it is a way of living in constant communion with the forest. The Bambuti believe that the forest is a living being, one that provides, guides, and governs to them. The land is not a resource to be harvested, but a relative to be respected. Through the Molimo, they do not seek to control or manipulate the forest. They seek to listen. The forest in turn listens to them. It responds to their prayers, their songs, and their actions. The Molimo also speaks to something deeper, the relationship between life and death. When a community member dies, the forest must be called upon to guide the spirit of the deceased into the afterlife. death for the man. Bambuti is not an end but a transition one that must be handled with great care and respect. Through the Molimo, the community comes together to honor the deceased, to send them on their journey, and to ensure that their spirit finds its rightful place within the great cycle of the forest. In the soft glow of the firelight, as the Molimo echoes and the Bambuti sing, the boundary between the human and the spiritual, the physical and the invisible blurs. The forest watches, the forest listens, and the Bambuti continue their sacred dance of living in communion with the earth. This is not a ritual of escape. It is a return to what is ancient, what is eternal, and what has always sustained them. The Molimo is their heartbeat, their breath, their way of knowing that they are not alone, that they are always held by the forest's watchful embrace. The arrival of outsiders in the Ituri forest marked the beginning of profound change for the Bambuti people. For generations, they had lived in close relationship with the forest, their lives guided by inherited knowledge, shared wisdom, and a deep respect for the land that sustained them. Their traditions thrived not in isolation, but in balance, with the trees, the rivers, and the rhythms of nature. In the 19th century, as explorers and travelers began venturing deeper into the heart of Central Africa, they encountered the Bambuti and their way of life. What was ancient and meaningful to the Bambuti was often misunderstood or misrepresented by newcomers with unfamiliar eyes. The forest was seen not as a sacred home, but as a land of untapped resources. The people who had lived there for millennia were often described in terms that overlooked the richness of their culture and the depth of their knowledge. As interest in the region grew, new systems of governance and land use began to affect the forest. Roads were introduced, boundaries were drawn. The natural world that had once been open and freely navigated began to change. Areas where the Bambuti once hunted and gathered became harder to access. Paths were blocked, territories shifted, and the freedom to live as they had always lived was increasingly challenged. Throughout these changes, the Bambuti remained committed to their traditions. They continued to honor the forest, to pass down stories through song and memory, and to live by principles of care, cooperation, and respect. While outside systems encouraged new ways of living, many Bambuti families preserved their knowledge and adapted carefully, protecting what mattered most: their connection to the land and to one another. The resilience of the Bambuti was not loud or confrontational, it was quiet, rooted and enduring. They adjusted, not by giving up who they were, but by holding on to their values. And through that commitment, they carried their story forward, not as a chapter that was ending, but as one still being written, deep in the forest they call home. Today, the Bambuti live in a world shaped by rapid change, where the ancient balance they maintained with their environment now faces constant disruption. The Ituri forest, once vast and seemingly endless, has become fragmented. Areas that were once open for seasonal hunting or quiet gathering are now bordered, controlled, or developed. For the Bambuti, this hasn't just changed the map, it has changed the way they live, move, and relate to the land. Many families have had to settle near neighboring communities, often adapting to life in villages at the forest's edge. Here they may grow small crops, trade goods, or seek work. In some areas, access to traditional hunting grounds is restricted, and long-held practices must now coexist with outside regulations. While some Bambuti have found ways to participate in these new systems, others face difficulty, especially where their rights to land and recognition remain unclear. Still, their culture continues. In homes built from forest materials, elders teach the names of plants, the meaning of birdsong, the patterns of the weather. Young people may attend schools and learn new languages, but they also return to the forest to listen, to learn, and to remember. The forest, though altered, still holds memory. The Bambuti still hold the forest. Support from local organizations has helped bring attention to the needs of indigenous communities. Some efforts focus on education, health, and the documentation of traditional knowledge. Others work to help secure land rights and preserve languages. And within the community itself, there is a quiet movement not to go backward, but to move forward with dignity in a way that honors their past. Modern life brings many pressures, environmental, economic, social, but the Bambuti meet these challenges with the same strength they've always carried. A strength born not from power over the land, but from partnership with it. They continue to adapt, not by forgetting, but by remembering who they are and where they come from. In this remembering, they continue to find their way. Resilience is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like gathering fruit in the early light, passing down stories while weaving nets, or teaching a child the quiet path to water without leaving a trace. For the Bambuti, resilience is this, lived daily, carried quietly, and rooted in a wisdom deeper than memory. Though the forest is changing and outside systems continue to shape the space around them, the Bambuti have never stopped practicing who they are. Their cultural identity is not stored in buildings or texts, but in gestures, songs, and traditions passed from hand to hand, voice to voice. In their music, especially the powerful polyphonic singing for which they are known, they preserve a soundscape that holds both history and hope. These songs are not performances for the world to watch. They are conversations with the forest, with ancestors, with the present. Young members of the community today often walk in two worlds. Some attend local schools, learn multiple languages, and engage with technologies their grandparents never imagined. Yet, they also walk barefoot in the forest, guided by elders who show them how to move with the trees, how to read the signs of weather and wildlife, how to honor the land even when it is not legally theirs. This dual path is not easy, but it is real, and for many Bambuti youth, it is a path of deep meaning. Community leaders and local advocates have taken steps to record oral histories, document plant knowledge, and protect sacred places. These efforts, often done with limited resources, are not just for cultural preservation, they are acts of affirmation. They say, we are still here, we still remember, and perhaps what's most powerful is that the Bambuti do not speak of survival as an accomplishment. To them, this continuity is natural, it is expected. Their ancestors endured, therefore they endure. They do not ask for recognition as a reward, they ask for space, to live, to teach, to continue. Their resilience, shaped by forest and time, is not about resisting change. It is about carrying what matters into the future. Not loudly, not with fanfare, but with quiet certainty. In a world that often forgets what it cannot count or measure, the Bambuti remember, and in that remembering they offer a model not of resistance alone, but of rootedness, grace, and the strength of simply remaining true. In the Bambuti way of life, the future is never separated from the past. Their story does not live in museums or history books. It lives in the forest, in the soil beneath their feet, in the breath of songs sung around the fire. To listen to the Bambuti is to listen to a living memory, not a fading echo. And as the world turns faster, as technology expands and cities rise, their steady presence becomes more powerful, not as a relic, but as a reminder. They do not speak of conservation in the abstract, they live it every day. Long before the term environmentalism was coined, the Bambuti practiced it through custom, respect and instinct. They do not overhunt, they do not clear more than they need, they do not waste. The forest is not something to save, it is something to serve and be served by. This mutual relationship is older than science and stronger than any law, but in recent years there has been a shift. Around the world, more and more people are starting to see the value of indigenous knowledge, not as folklore, but as guidance. Scientists are studying traditional ecological wisdom. Conservationists are realizing that the people best equipped to protect a forest are the ones who've lived in it longest. Slowly, the world is starting to recognize what the Bambuti have always known. The forest doesn't need to be managed, it needs to be respected. Young Bambuti are stepping into this new awareness with quiet strength. Some are becoming translators, not just of language but of culture. They speak to both worlds, they explain their way of life to those who've never seen it. They stand between systems, forest and government, tradition and change, carrying the voice of their people into places their ancestors never had to go. But even as they do, they return. They come home to the trees, to the paths only they know, to the elders who still sit in the shade and tell the stories that cannot be Googled. In this balance they are building something remarkable, a future that honors the past without getting lost in it. The Bambuti do not need to become anyone else. The world in many ways needs to remember how to become more like them, not in dress or speech, but in spirit, in how we relate to the land, in how we listen to the quiet, in how we remember what it means to belong to something bigger than ourselves. They are not waiting for the world to change. They are already living the wisdom the world is just beginning to see. If there is one truth the Bambuti hold more deeply than any other, it is this: the forest remembers. It remembers every step, every song, every story whispered beneath its leaves. It remembers the ancestors who walked its trails long before borders were drawn. And it remembers the children who still run barefoot beneath its branches, guided by rhythms older than language. This remembrance is not passive, it is alive. The forest is not a backdrop to the Bambuti, it is a living participant in their lives. It listens when they sing, it answers when they call. It nourishes, shelters, warns, and watches. In every tree, every shadow, every sound, there is a presence. To outsiders, it may seem silent, but to the Bambuti, it is always speaking. Their entire worldview rests on this relationship. It is not symbolic, it is real. And it is that relationship between people and place, between humans and the sacred, that may offer one of the most important lessons for our time. Because the Bambuti are not simply showing us how to survive in a forest. They are showing us how to live in connection, how to walk lightly, how to listen deeply, how to act with humility and purpose, and how to hold on to what matters. Even when the world changes around you, they do not claim to have all the answers, but they have not forgotten the questions. What is home? What is enough? What do we owe the land that feeds us? What do we owe each other? Their life is not a closed story. It is an open invitation to slow down, to look again, and to remember not just them, but ourselves. The parts of us that once knew how to be quiet, how to be small, how to be part of something vast and beautiful and alive. The Bambuti do not need to be saved. Their wisdom has already saved them again and again. The question now is not whether they will endure. It is whether we will listen before it is too late. And so, as the fire fades and the final embers settle into the earth, the story of the Bambuti lingers not as a tale completed, but as a song still echoing through the trees. This is not the story of a lost people. It is the story of a people who never left, who never stopped listening, who never stopped remembering in a world that often chases progress at the cost of presence. The Bambuti remind us of something vital, that true strength is quiet, that wisdom lives in humility, and that to belong to the earth is not weakness, it is survival. They have endured not because they have conquered, but because they have cooperated. They have adapted, not by forgetting, but by remembering. Their footsteps do not leave scars on the land. They leave stories. Their songs are not recorded in studios, but carried on the wind, in harmony with the sounds of birds, insects, and rain. Their memories do not fade in history books. They live on in the dance of shadows through the trees, in the careful hands of a child learning to weave, in the voice of an elder singing at dusk. The world may grow louder, the forests may grow smaller, but the wisdom of the Bambuti still stands quiet, unwavering, ready. If we are to move forward with any hope of balance, it will not come from inventing new truths, but from remembering the old ones, the truths that live in rhythm, in respect, in reciprocity. The truths the Bambuti have never stopped living. Let us not forget them. Let us not turn away from their example. Let us carry their story, not as something distant and exotic, but as something urgent and shared, because in the quiet heart of the forest, the Bambuti are still singing, and the world still needs to hear